Welcome back with a smiling face. Important note before starting, if you are a fan of audio stories, then our Patreon account is the best platform for you. Join us on Patreon for the best audiobooks ever. His Revenge. Episode 4. Chapter 26 to 33. If you go up that flight of stairs and take a right, you will find your room on the left side of the hall, Lemon said sweetly, handing the man on the opposite side of the counter his room key. Is it too late to get dinner? I am afraid I wasn't able to stop during my travels today, he asked her. His voice was calm and warm. Nothing was threatening about the man as I eyed him carefully. Our dinner service just ended for the evening, but I would be happy to ask the staff to put something together for you before they leave, Lemon told him. Oh, no. There is no need to go to the trouble. I am sure there is a restaurant still open in this charming little town, he assured Lemon. Yes, sir, there is a diner about 3 blocks from here. They are open late every night and have a pretty wide-ranging menu, Lemon informed him. She was exceptionally good with customers. Thank you, he said, tipping his hat at her. He turned to head towards his room. I would be happy to have a conversation with you both, his voice spoke in my head again. This diner sounds like a nice place to have a cup of coffee and introduce myself. I looked at Felix, who was still bewildered. When he realized I was looking at him, he shook his head. I'm calling the Alpha, he said quietly to me. No, you aren't. I told him quickly. I am Luna, and I can handle this just fine without my mate. Now, let's get the kids settled, then you can go with me to speak with the man. I let my Luna tone slip out as I glared at Felix, who glared right back. He was struggling because of his loyalty to Liam and his inability to defy me. He let out a slight growl, but I didn't drop his gaze. Fine, he finally gritted out. I turned back to Lemon, who was doing something on the computer. Lemon, how long has that man booked a room for? I asked her. She looked over at me. Actually, he has it reserved for a whole month. When he made the reservation, he said he was in the area on business, she said. Okay, I said, nodding. I am going to take the rest of that pizza back to the kids and get them put up for the night. I will see you first thing in the morning, I told her, trying to act normally. She smiled and nodded. I nudged Felix, and we moved from behind the counter and towards the dining room, where Junior should be munching away on his pizza. He was on his second slice when we came over to the table. Hey bud, let's take this back to share with your sister and Maddox, okay? I suggested. He nodded, sliding off the chair with his slice still in his hand. I grabbed the round tray holding the pizza and led us through the kitchen to the back door. When we got back to the cottage, Missy and Maddox were watching TV, sharing a blanket on the couch. We brought pizza, Junior announced as we came through the door. I set the pizza down on the coffee table in front of the couch, and Junior plopped down next to them, reaching for his third slice. Missy and Maddox also went to dig in immediately. Missy, Felix, and I need to go meet with someone. Can you all stay here until I get back? I asked her. She nodded at me, her mouth full of food. I turned around and went back over to Felix, who stood by the door. Have one of the extra warriors that my mate sent along with us stay right by, I told him in a hushed tone. Already done, he confirmed as he opened the door for me to exit. To prevent any more grumblings from Felix, I went to the front and headed for the car. Wordlessly, he followed my lead, getting in the driver's seat. When we arrived at the diner, we walked in to see the man already seated at a table, a glass of water in front of him while he looked over a menu. Felix was tense behind me as I strode towards the table. I sat down across from the man to be met with an interesting pair of eyes. He was a thin man with a strong jawline, handsome almost. He was pale with dark hair, but his eyes stood out the most. They were white. I had never seen anything like it. Felix sat in the chair next to me, not giving me any space. The man looked in between both of us. I guess some introductions are in order. My name is Theodore, he said smoothly. By appearance alone, I would assume you are Alpha and Luna of the territory I have come into. My name is Azalea, I am the Luna of Blood Eclipse, I said calmly. Theodore's expression morphed into one of curiosity at my words. You don't need to know who he is, I said, waving my hand dismissively at Felix. So, he is not your mate? Theodore said, raising an eyebrow. No, this is not my mate, I told him. Did you say Blood Eclipse? He clarified. I nodded my head. Does that interest you? I questioned. Yes, actually. Among my people, your pack holds significant value, he said. I kept my expression neutral, but my curiosity piqued. I wished I could link Felix to see if he knew what Theodore was speaking about. As you didn't know who I am, is it safe for me to assume that you didn't know where you are? I asked him. He shook his head, giving me a small smile. I did not know if you can believe me. I did not lie to your associate at the inn, I am here for work purposes. Did it not concern you that the entire area smells of my pack members? I looked over him seriously. Only for my own safety. Although I never renounced my clan, I have not been in contact with them for many years now. I do not wish to be associated with their dealings any longer, he explained. I tried to keep my features neutral while I was internally sputtering. Clans? I guess that is the equivalent of our packs. And he clearly knows about werewolves and somehow about our specific pack. How far do I press for information? How do I even determine if he is harmless or not? Before I could ask anything else, a waitress came over to take his order. I declined her offer to bring anything and waited for her to move away so we could continue speaking. I resolved to be direct. It wasn't like me to be sneaky or deceptive. Should I trust you? I asked. A smile crept onto his face. It was hauntingly handsome. I like you. You are direct. Only you can decide to trust me or not, though. I will promise you, I mean no harm to your pack or the humans in this town. Like I said before, I am here for work purposes. I looked sideways at Felix, who was openly glaring at Theodore. For some reason, I trusted his words. Liam always says I am too trusting, but something in me knew he was honest. What is your business here? I asked him. I am an architect. I am here working with a contractor on some renovations to the same inn we met in, he told me. That would explain the month's stay at the inn. Do you always work so closely on your projects? I mean, once the plans are drawn up and approved, shouldn't your task be finished? I questioned. Yes, usually, he chuckled. But the contractor mentioned that there were some more difficult attributes to the remodel and is sending out a very green foreman. Since I have worked with this contractor for a long time now, I agreed to come here to supervise the work and make any adjustments necessary with little hiccup. I nodded my head slowly. You do realize that I will have to inform my mate about your presence here, and you will be watched during your stay? I asked him. I internally rolled my eyes as I thought about telling Liam about Theodore. I knew it wasn't going to go over well. I would need to hold off for now. I would expect nothing less, he said with a smirk. Do you have any more questions for me? I would hazard a guess that you have never met a vampire, being so young and from blood eclipse no less. What did he mean? What does our pack have to do with vampires? I felt like I needed to talk to Liam about this. He had never mentioned vampires, ever. I honestly was not even sure they still existed before today. No, not today. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, Theodore. I am sure we will be speaking again soon. I will leave you to eat your meal, I told him, rising from my chair. He gave me a warm smile as the waitress brought his plate over. Felix was up immediately and behind me, blocking me from Theodore's gaze. As we left the diner, I turned my head to Felix. Tell Axel that I would like someone to keep an eye on our guest for the time being. Do not make him aware of who or what he is for now. And you will let me talk to my mate. This time, I didn't use any of my Luna tone, but I hoped Felix would listen all the same. It was dark out now as we climbed into the car, and Felix drove us back to the inn. When we got back to the cottage, Junior was fast asleep with his head in Maddox's lap. Missy was leaning against his shoulder, looking almost asleep as well. His eyes came up to me as I entered and closed the door softly behind me. I gave him a warm smile. Why don't I just get him to bed? I whispered, motioning to Junior. No, Luna. It would be best if you didn't lift him, he said quickly. I can do it. He shook Missy gently and woke her up. Oh, Lee. You're back, she said groggily. You all should head to bed. I am sure you will find plenty to do tomorrow. You can show Maddox around town, I said softly. She nodded and looked down at Junior. I can get him, Maddox said, shifting to scoop Junior up. He pulled my sleeping boy into his arms as he stood, Missy following him. They shuffled over to the doorway leading to the extra bedrooms that Liam had added to the cottage. Put Liam and Leo together so Maddox can have his own room, I called to them as they disappeared. I sighed, watching them walk away and hugging my arms to my body. I cleaned up the couch and coffee table, folding the blankets back up and laying them over the back of the couch, clearing the pizza dishes. I locked the door, knowing that Felix would be heading to bed soon himself and sending patrols over to watch the cottage. After changing into some pajamas, I climbed into bed and pulled out my cell phone. There was a message from Liam from a while ago. My Alpha, everything all right? Me, everything is fine. I miss you. My Alpha, I miss you too, little Luna. Are you going to bed? Me, yes. Kids just went to bed as well. My Alpha, did you lock the door? I chuckled at his concern. He always worried too much. Me, yes, my Alpha. Doors are locked and I am sure someone is outside already. You should also get some sleep. My Alpha, I can't sleep without you in my arms. Me, I can't say I am a fan either. My Alpha, I love you, Azalea. Me, I love you too, Liam. Chapter 27. Missy. I woke up to Leo poking me in the cheek. Sissy, wake up, he yelled at me. I groaned, trying to roll away from him. Wake up, he continued. I blinked my eyes open to a very awake Leo sitting next to me on my bed. What? I asked groggily. I had an accident, he pouted. I let out a sigh. Sitting up, I rubbed the sleep from my eyes as Leo looked at me wearily. It's okay. Let's get it cleaned up. You should probably take a bath. You stink, I said. He nodded quickly, climbing down the bed. I rolled off the bed from the other side and pulled the blanket with me. It was going to need to be washed too. I rolled up the blanket as I stepped into the hall. I tossed it on the floor next to the door and went over to the room we had put Junior and Leo in last night. Junior was still asleep, and luckily, his end of the bed remained dry. I shook his shoulder gently. "Hey bud, time to get up," I said. After a minute, he started to stir. "Wake up, Bubba," Leo called from behind me. Junior sat up, glaring at us. I laughed. He was not a morning person, the complete opposite of Leo, who definitely was. "It's summer. We are supposed to sleep in," he grumbled. "Not when your brother pees the bed." "Up. I need to change the sheets," I said flatly. He got a grossed out look on his face and scrambled from the bed quickly, falling to the floor with a thud. Leo laughed at him. "That was a bit dramatic, bud," I said, rolling my eyes. I started collecting the blankets from the bed into a pile. "What was the noise in here?" I heard Maddox say. I turned to see him standing in the doorway, scratching his head. My eyes grew wide when I looked at him. He was only wearing a pair of shorts that were low on his hips. He didn't quite have rippling abs, but there was definitely some muscle there. "Missy," he said, breaking my errant thoughts. "Oh, Junior fell out of bed," I said, turning back to the bed. "You okay?" Maddox asked him. "I'm going to get Mom," he muttered grumpily. "I had an accident," Leo told Maddox. "Ah, that's all right, little guy," Maddox said sweetly. He came over next to me as I pulled the sheets from the bed. "Need any help?" he asked. No. I got it. I'll just have to take these up to the inn to wash. And I need to get Leo in the bath so Azalea doesn't have to bend over the tub. Liam has been doing it, but he isn't here," I trailed off, my eyes wandering over to his shirtless torso. "You sure?" he asked. "I don't mind helping." I pulled the last pillowcase from the pillows and rolled it up with the sheets, moving to scoop the blankets up with them. "All done. Lee will probably have someone come down and clean the bed later." "The liner is on your mattress," I joked. "You can go back to bed." "Nah, I'm awake now." "I was sort of hoping I could rope you into going for a run with me," he gave me a hopeful look. "Maybe," I said. It had been a while since I had been out on a run, and it did sound like fun. "Let me get Leo washed up and changed, then talk to Lee. She probably won't care." "Cool," he said with a wink. He sauntered out of the room, and I had to swallow the drool in my mouth. "Let's get you in the bath," I said to Leo. "Azalea." My phone rang on the nightstand next to the bed. When I moved to roll in that direction, I realized I had one of the kids cuddled up with me. I opened my eyes to Junior, curled up in the blanket along my side. I reached over him carefully, grabbing my phone. I smiled down at him as I answered it. "Azalea, did you think I wouldn't find out?" Liam's voice boomed. "I swear to the moon goddess if you leave that cottage before I can get there." "Stop," I said, cutting him off. "Don't even think about finishing your threat." I moved back off the bed, leaving Junior to sleep. I walked over towards the kitchenette, my irritation rising. Liam was silent on the other end of the phone, but I knew he was seething. "Why are you acting like I have hidden something from you?" I finally asked as calmly as I could manage. "Did you really think I was going to let a vampire stay in my territory, and you were going to conceal it from me?" he accused. "This is about Theodore," I asked. "Who told you?" "I specifically told Felix not to tell Liam. My bodyguard would be getting an earful. Every one of my men in that town is aware when you are there without me." Everyone knows what you and the children are doing at all times. Of course, I was told about the vampire, he growled. Liam, you are overreacting. I argued. No, I am not. Goddess, Azalea, you better stay put, he warned. I will not. I spoke with Theodore, but of course, you already know that. I was going to tell you about him. I won't lie to you and tell you he is harmless, but I have no reason to believe he poses a threat. I seethed. Don't you think if he were a threat, he would have already done something? He wouldn't make his plans obvious. Liam yelled. He knew there were wolves here far before I knew he was a vampire. He came clean to us before Felix could rip him apart. He didn't hesitate to tell me exactly what he is doing here, Liam, I ranted. Azalea, this is not up for discussion. I know because I already made the decision. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a busy day today, Alpha, I snipped, emphasizing the last word before hanging up the phone. I turned around to see Missy standing in the doorway, holding Leo on her back. I noticed his hair was wet. Missy had a worried look on her face. I plastered a smile on and greeted them. Good morning, I said as cheerily as I could. Everything all right? Missy asked, walking further into the room. Yes, just grown-up disagreements. Why is Leo wet? I asked her. Oh, he had an accident. I pulled the sheets off and gave him a bath, she explained. She stopped, letting him slide down her back, and he ran over to me. Well, that explains the extra body in my bed, I said with a chuckle. Why don't we all get ready and go up to breakfast? Leo nodded enthusiastically. He slept so much last night I was sure he was starving by now. Do you want to get Junior up? I asked him, ruffling his hair. He didn't even answer me before running over to the bed and climbing up to wake up Junior, who grumbled and tried to hide further into the blanket. Felix glared at me from across the room as I sat with Lemon at a table in the dining room, looking over plans for the kitchen. She was talking animatedly about everything. We would be meeting in a little bit with the foreman and probably Theodore. I rolled my eyes, shifting my attention back to Lemon. He was angry with me, that much was obvious. I got the feeling Liam called him to yell after I hung up on him. When the kids and I went to leave the cottage for breakfast at the inn, we opened the door to the same angry Felix, glaring at me with his arms crossed. I ignored him and pushed the kids past him. He was given no choice but to follow me. His quiet rage had continued all through breakfast. Leo and Junior were childishly oblivious to it, but Missy continued to give me questioning looks while Maddox was fidgeting a lot. Missy wasted no time dragging Maddox away to show him around town as soon as their plates were clean. The boys, of course, begged to play outside. I was wondering when Liam was going to come storming in here. He had continued to try and call me for a little while after I hung up on him, but I just put my phone on silent and ignored him. After working with Lemon today, I wanted to take the kids over to Amy's house and see my best friend, not worry about a vampire and angry mate. So, what do you think? Lemon asked, jerking me out of my thoughts. I think it will be great. You did a really great job with all of this. I am excited to get started, I told her. Okay, now that is all settled. Why is Felix just replaying your murder by his own hands over and over in his head? She asked. I stifled a laugh at that. I may have irritated Liam and by proxy him. It'll be fine, I said, waving my hand dismissively. I missed Liam, I hated being away from him. But I was perfectly capable of handling things here. Sometimes, it frustrated me more that he was always trying to hide me or keep me back, never trusting my judgment. "He better not scare the foreman," she muttered. "Speaking of which, he will be here soon, so I am going to go the front." I nodded, smiling at her as she hurried past Felix and out of the room. I turned to him, giving him a sour look. "Could you at least look normal?" "She's right, you're going to scare away the people we are meeting with," I glared at him, irritation evident in my voice. Felix didn't change his expression, continuing to stare at me angrily. I rolled my eyes, knowing I wasn't winning this battle for now. "At least move to the other end of the room and scowl out of sight," I grumbled, turning around. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. 12 missed calls from Liam, 20 unread messages. I ignored them and opened up a message to check on Missy and Maddox. I got an almost instant reply, a selfie of them both drinking coffee down at the cafe, a slice of cake on the table between them. I smiled, thinking about when Liam took me on our first date. He was so sweet and attentive even then. I knew Missy and Maddox weren't on a date per se, but I couldn't help but hope that maybe she would rethink her relationship with Vlad a bit. "Right this way," Lemon's voice came through the door as she let in the foreman. He was a young guy who definitely seemed green like Theodore had claimed. He was accompanied by a small woman, carrying a tablet in her hands, and Theodore, who had a slight smile on his face. As they got closer, I caught the scent of a werewolf. I breathed a little deeper, trying to determine if it was the foreman or the girl with him. "The assistant is the wolf, dear," Theodore said in my head. My head snapped to him quickly in surprise. I was only used to hearing Liam in my head. "You may want to speak with your companion." My brow scrunched as I looked at him. His eyes moved to Felix, who had moved towards the other end of the room at my request. My eyes followed his, and shock came over my features. Felix had his eyes fixed on the girl, intense and dark. His face was no longer angry, and his posture had changed. My eyes went to the assistant, and she held his gaze, lips parted and cheeks flushed. "Mate," I heard her whisper almost inaudibly. She swallowed hard, and my eyes went between them. Did she just say mate? Was she Felix's second chance? Was this happening right now? I noticed Lemon giving me an odd look. "Jax, before we begin, would you mind taking a look at something with me?" Theodore said in a smooth tone. "Sure thing," the foreman said. Theodore motioned for him to follow towards the kitchen doors. "Lacey, you can just stay here," he muttered as he followed Theodore. Lemon, would you mind running out back and checking on the kids? I am feeling a little sick, but I want to make sure they are okay before we start," I asked, thinking quickly. I wanted to get everyone else out of this room. I knew I couldn't leave because Felix would just follow me. "Sure thing. Probably a good idea," she said airily, taking the bait. As she left the room, I stepped away from the girl, and Felix advanced. His hands were fisted, and he looked tense. Even though the girl was taller than me, she still looked tiny compared to his bulking form. He stopped a few feet from her, breathing heavily. I could tell she was a little excited as well. "I'm Lacey," she said in a small sing-song voice. "Felix," he grunted. I rolled my eyes. I know he had lost his mate previously, and I guess I always assumed his quiet, brooding nature had emerged from that. Now I was wondering if he had always been like that. Before either of them could say another word, Liam burst into the room. "Goddess, Azalea," he called, stopping dead in his tracks as his eyes swept the room. Chapter 28. Liam. Seriously, this woman is going to be the death of me. First, she hung up on me, and now she was just ignoring all my calls. And she was just too far away to link. I growled as my call rang and rang once again, ending in her voicemail. I slammed my phone down onto my desk in frustration. My door creaked open, and I shot a dirty look at the person walking in. It was Damien, and he looked unfazed by my glare. "I have news," he said gruffly. "I know he is still angry about his sister's situation, but I am doing everything I can think of. Abraham asked me to give him a couple of days to go over everything before he brings me any ideas, and I was trying to do that, but the Hale men continued to grace me with their frustrations." "What?" I asked, my tone harder than necessary. "Goddess, why does Azalea have to do this with a vampire at the inn, no less?" I confirmed both groups' stories. Everything they told us is true. Langston was able to contact an old friend in a larger pack in the area. They had taken in some of the misplaced wolves as well, he said. My eyebrows shot up at that. "So, it is all true. Do we know anything of the person responsible?" I questioned. He shook his head. "Not from what I can gather. All the reports depict him as hooded and his face hidden by shadow. But the method is always the same. He forces his way into the pack house, then comes out with the alpha's head and kills the Luna in front of the rest. So far, the largest pack he has come after is only a tenth of our size," he reported. "Do we know how many packs he has destroyed?" "Can't be sure, but from what I can gather with Langston's help, 6 total. But it would be hard to say. That region is scattered with packs microscopic in size and secluded in the mountains," he concluded. I sighed, rubbing my hands over my face. Obviously, this wasn't good. Whoever was behind this could do this because these packs probably didn't have the training and security measures we were able to have. They were small, microscopic, like Damien said. And sending them any help would be next to impossible. Well, we will need to welcome them to the pack officially. They have no other place to go and, for the moment, seem to be fitting in well. After that, we need to figure out exactly what to do with the orphans," I said, my mind turning into the practical matters now. "I am sure Azalea will have a solution when she comes back," he said. He clearly didn't want to be assigned this task right now. He hadn't been eager to do much other than rage over our lack of answers on Gwen. "Yeah," I muttered. "I can meet with them later to let them all know." I plopped down in my chair, trying to organize my thoughts. Damien lingered, not leaving or saying anything else. I looked up at him and sighed. "Nothing from Abraham yet." "You will be the first one told, I promise," I said gentler now. "It doesn't make sense." "It just doesn't," he said, anger rising up in his body. I saw his fists clench at his sides. "I know it doesn't make sense. But, so far, it's a perfect crime. I want to find your answers. I want answers. But I need you to prepare for the possibility that we may not get them," I told him firmly. "That isn't good enough, and you know it," he gritted out. "Damien, go for a run. Blow off some steam and get your head back on the right way. I need to leave here as soon as possible, and I need you in your right mind," I told him. "Why would you need to leave? Go. I'll tell you when you can calm down," I said dismissively. He scowled at me, turning and stomping from the room. "Lily, he's still in a mood. I need my beta back," I linked her. "I know, Liam. I need him back too," she replied. I could hear the stress in her voice. "I need to go to the inn as soon as possible." I need Damien to handle things while I am gone, I told her. What is going on at the inn? Didn't Lee go up to meet with the contractors about that kitchen remodel? I thought she was going to be there for a couple of days and come home, she asked quickly. A vampire has come into our territory, and Azalea thinks it fine to leave him be, I growled through my anger. A vampire? Like a real one? Lily asked me, dumbfounded. Yes, a real vampire. Axel confirmed it, I told her. I need Damien to get himself right, so I can get out of here. Give me a couple of hours. I will calm him down, she promised. I sat back in my chair. I let out a hollow laugh. Vampire. It was absolutely ridiculous, right? This very pack had been the reason behind their almost desolation only a short time ago. Of course, I was sure that many of the pack members my age or younger were entirely unaware. The conflict had happened before my grandfather took over as Alpha, even though he was a leading force. Vampires are our natural enemy, but none had been stupid enough to come anywhere near our region since then. The ones that had escaped had done so barely alive from what I learned. I leaned over my desk, trying to get everything in order. Damien had tossed a folder with all the information he got on the rogues on the desk. I set it aside, attaching a note to arrange lodging and employment with Azalea later. After I got to her and figured out what is going on in her head, that is. It's like she has no voice in her head warning her that she may be in danger. A couple of hours later and I am finally leaving the pack house. I didn't even bother getting in my car. I went straight to the woods, slipping my clothes into a bag and tying it to my leg before shifting and taking off towards the inn. I could get there much faster this way. I pumped my legs as fast as I could go, eager to get to the human town and dispose of the vampire. As I got closer, I could feel Azalea's emotions more clearly. At first, it was just irritation, and I am sure that was targeted at me. Then, when I was only minutes away, concern lanced through our bond. Felix, where is she? I linked. I waited a moment and got no response. I tried not to panic, now worried that even her guard wasn't linking me. Felix never ignored me. Axel, where is Azalea? I linked him. At the inn with Felix, sir, he reported. Missy and Maddox are in town at the cafe, and the boys are playing in the woods. I need more eyes on the inn, I told him. I skidded to a stop at the edge of the woods, quickly shifting and grabbing for my clothes. I was dressed in record time, and I took off around the inn, storming in the front door. The girl at the desk gave me a worried look as I moved towards the dining room, already knowing where she was. Goddess, Azalea, I growled, coming into the dining room. I stopped seeing Felix standing in front of some female. Azalea's eyes were on me as I tried to figure out what was going on. Liam, they're mates, Azalea linked me. My eyes came to hers, and I couldn't figure out why there were tears in them. Felix, I addressed him, not taking my eyes off Azalea. The vampire is in the kitchen, sir. The kids are being watched as well, he said in a low voice. Wait, Theo, a voice sounded, and I realized it was the girl in front of Felix. Why are you worried about him? Azalea turned to her, dragging my attention to her as well. Are you aware of what he is? Azalea asked gently. Of course. How couldn't I? I can't very well help the foreman manage these projects if I don't also know one of our architects, she explained with a confused expression. Azalea nodded. I was baffled. She knew he was a vampire yet thought nothing of it. My eyes went to Felix staring intently at the girl, his eyes a swirl of emotion I had never seen before. And who are you? I addressed the girl. Felix snapped his eyes to me, and I can see him restraining himself from snapping at me due to the tone I used to address her. My name is Lacey. I am an associate of the contracting company hired to do the kitchen remodel here, she said. And you? Her tone was polite but also with a hint of irritation. My name is Liam Blackfur, Alpha of Blood Eclipse, I told her. Her eyes went wide. Wait, she said, looking between all of us. My name is Azalea and yes, I am Luna. Felix is my guard, she told the girl, motioning to Felix. Oh, she said quietly, turning back to him. He was still staring down at her with an intense expression. Azalea came over to me, pulling on my arm. Let's give them a moment, she whispered. I scowled at her but nodded. I was still mad at her, but I could agree that Felix and Lacey needed a moment. She pulled me back out towards the empty sitting room. I stopped her after we were a few feet outside the dining room doors. Azalea, I warned. She turned to me with her own scowl. Liam, she said in an unapologetic tone. She stared me down with an obstinate expression. Goddess, this woman can be so frustrating. Azalea, I don't understand how you are okay with this. I questioned. Liam, why are you freaking out so much? Did you even know vampires were still alive? Because I didn't, she whispered at me, her eyes shooting to the girl at the front desk. Yes, I gritted out quietly. Which is why I wish you would listen to me. And I wish you would listen to me. Nothing about him seems off. He offered up information willingly, she argued. And how do you know he isn't just trying to get you to trust him? It wouldn't be the first time someone has tried that with you, I ceded. We never talked about it, but we both know Cole had tried to gain her trust before kidnapping her. She shook her head, rubbing her fingers across her forehead. Why are you so quick to not trust people? Have you ever even met a vampire? How can you be sure he is our enemy? They are our natural enemy, Azalea. I do not need to have met one to know that they are dangerous. He doesn't even have a clan, Liam. And something tells me that is about the opposite of a wolf not having a pack. Our conversation was interrupted. Excuse me, I think we are ready to begin, a voice said from the doorway. I turned to see a pale man standing there, and I instantly knew he was the vampire. A low growl escaped my lips as I pulled Azalea towards me. She tried to push me away, but I ignored her efforts. You must be Alpha Blackfur, the man said. My name is Theodore, but there isn't much introduction needed, I guess. I will assure you, though, I have no ill intent being here. I am simply here to work. He smiled at me and turned back around to go into the dining room as if the matter was settled. Liam, Azalea said, reaching up to place her hand on my cheek. My blood cooled a little at her touch. Liam, come in there and be a part of the meeting with us. Then we can talk about this later. You can't rip him apart in the middle of the inn anyway. I make no promises, I snarled. It's probably good that you're here anyway. I slept terribly last night, and I bet my dedicated bodyguard is going to need the night off now, she said with a smirk. Chapter 29. Missy, no way. Nope. I will not, I repeated. Oh, come on, you're scared of a movie. Maddox laughed at me. That stuff is supposed to be based on true stories. I argued. He just continued to laugh, tears starting to leak from his eyes. I scowled at him. We are not watching scary movies tonight. End of discussion. I told him defiantly, going back to my ice cream. We were sitting on a bench in the small park that's a few blocks from the inn. I showed him around the town today. We mainly had just wandered around and talked, messing around all day. I really enjoyed spending time out here away from the pack, and Maddox just made it more fun. It's not over. I will get you to watch a scary movie with me, he said confidently with a smirk on his face. He shoveled more ice cream in his mouth. It isn't going to happen, I told him for the 100th time. What if I held your hand, he joked. Or let you sit in my lap. I rolled my eyes at him. Joking. I know. Vlad, I swallowed. Maddox always said it that way. Vlad. They were both odd at the party. So, do you still want to go for a run? It's starting to get dark, but I don't think Lee will mind, I asked him, changing the subject. Can we? I haven't stretched my paws in so long, he said, excitement in his voice. I can text her, I said, pulling out my phone. Do you wanna eat in town or head up to the inn? I don't care. I am up for anything, he said. Maddox was so easygoing. I always felt relaxed with him, and I think that is why we were getting along the best so far. However, as I looked down at my phone, I realized it was already the end of the dinner service at the inn. We could always go hunting in wolf form. I knitted my eyebrows together. Hunt in wolf form? Like kill and eat Bambi? Maddox must have picked up on my confusion because he chuckled before explaining. Werewolves, miss. We can hunt and eat like wolves. You've never hunted? I shook my head. No. I've never killed anything before, I admitted. Look at that. Alpha's daughter hasn't had her first kill, he teased. I narrowed my eyes at him. He stood up, grabbing my hand to pull me up too. Come on. Let's go find some dinner. I let Maddox pull me back towards the inn and head towards the forest behind it. All of a sudden, I felt shy with him grasping my hand. When we were about 20 or so yards into the trees, Maddox stopped and started stripping. I froze, staring at his now exposed back. Flashbacks from this morning floated into my mind, and my wolf actually purred in my head. Traitor. Vlad is my boyfriend, and he will be my mate. Maddox had kicked off his shoes and was undoing his pants when he stopped, realizing I hadn't moved. His eyebrow went up as he looked at me strangely. Are you coming? He asked. Oh, yeah, I said, turning around quickly. I dashed away from him, finding a tree to hide behind. I covered my warm face in my hands for a minute, trying to get the image of him shirtless out of my head. My phone dinged with a message from Lee. Lee, go ahead. Please be back by midnight. There should be a patrol to follow you. With a sigh, I slid out of my clothes quickly and shifted. Rustling in the trees nearby told me that the patrol knew exactly where we were. I headed back over to Maddox. Stopping in front of his grey wolf, I realized that we had no way to communicate right now. He wasn't part of the pack, so we couldn't link, and in wolf form, we couldn't talk. He nudged me with his snout and motioned for me to follow him. I wagged my tail, and he took off. As I ran after him, I shook out my fur, happy to feel the wind on my body. My wolf whined at me to take over. I let her, figuring she would be better at hunting anyway. Azalea. Liam was on edge during the entire meeting. His eyes almost never left Theodore. Felix struggled the entire time as well. His eyes kept fixing themselves on Lacey. When she would look up from her tablet where she was taking notes and meet his eyes, he would avert his gaze quickly. It was sort of cute to watch my large, intimidating bodyguard be embarrassed by a female. When we finished, Liam forced me into the office with him. Felix followed unwillingly. I could tell he wanted to direct his attention elsewhere. When the door closed behind us, no one said anything for a minute. We all stood there, the tension palpable in the room. Liam finally broke the silence. "Sit," he said, pointing at the desk. His eyes wandered down to my stomach. I rolled my eyes but didn't fight him. Next, he turned to Felix. "Is the girl your mate?" Felix nodded. "All right. Go. I won't keep you from bonding. Azalea will stay with me, but I want all the patrols watching the inn and us at all times. Can you arrange that with Axel?" "Yes, Alpha," Felix said in a tight voice. I smiled at him. I couldn't imagine Felix with a mate, but it made my heart swell thinking about him getting this gift from the moon goddess. He deserved some happiness. "Go. Let me know when you are ready to return to duty, and we can discuss things moving forward," Liam told him. A muscle jumped in Felix's cheek, and for a brief moment, I thought he would smile. Instead, he gave Liam a curt nod before turning and leaving the room. Liam's shoulders slumped before he turned around to me. He ran his hands over his face, groaning, "Azalea." I couldn't decide how I wanted to play this one out. I wanted him to trust my judgment and not make me hide away because he perceives a minimal threat. "Why are you always like this? Complete disregard for your own safety, always believing the best of people." Did he sound tired? "You never hesitate to put yourself in danger when it comes to protecting the pack or me," I pointed out. "That is my job, Azalea. I am Alpha. I need to protect everyone," he argued. "It is also my job to take care of this pack, Liam. My role doesn't change just because," I trailed off. It was silly all this time later, but I still didn't like admitting aloud that I am wolfless. Although I accepted my situation, part of me still felt lacking compared to the others around me. "But it needs to change, Azalea." Liam moved towards me, kneeling in front of me as I sat in the chair. He grabbed my hands in his. "Where would the pack be if something were to happen to you? What about the kids? And me? I need you to accept your limitations and stop pushing me so much." He was begging me. I looked away from him, his words causing tears to threaten my eyelashes. I didn't want to be a Luna on the sidelines. I didn't want anyone to think that Liam has a weak mate or the pack has a soft Luna. Liam's finger gently pushed my chin so that I was facing him again. "Baby, it's not because I think you are weak or unworthy. I just can't fathom you getting hurt because I couldn't protect you," he said softly. "I won't let it happen again." I leaned forward, resting my forehead against his. "Can you try to trust my judgment just a bit more?" I whispered. "Liam, you're always so quick to assume I am too trusting." His thumb caressed my cheek. "I guess I can't deny you are usually right," he admitted. The rogue group's stories checked out. Damien was able to confirm everything. "You were right." My eyes shot open, and I pulled back from him. "Then who?" "I don't know anything more about who is responsible for all of it. But you were right, those people are no threat to us. We can allow them to join the pack soon, officially." I gave him a wide smile. "Oh, no, no. That does not mean the same thing for this vampire. Azalea, you don't understand how dangerous they are. Whether he physically appears to be or not, that man is dangerous. He isn't here by chance, there is no possible way that him coming to Blood Eclipse is a coincidence." I sighed. "You just said that I'm always right." So why can't I be right about this too? Liam had a strange look on his face, like he was hesitant to tell me something. Liam, what? I can't read your mind. His shoulders slumped, and he averted his eyes. Have you ever heard any rumors about why our pack is called Blood Eclipse? I shook my head. Let's go back to the cottage, and I will explain. Where are the kids? Missy and Maddox are out and about in town. They had coffee and dessert at the cafe a bit ago. Then, the boys ran off to play in the woods, I told him. I'm sure the patrols know where they are. Come on, he said, pulling me up. I sat at the small table in the cottage. Liam was at the stove, making some tea. He was on edge, and I couldn't possibly figure out what our pack name had to do with all of this. I always thought it was a little odd, maybe aggressive. Blood Eclipse. It had an ominous tone to it. Surely, if our pack name had something to do with vampires, we would have been taught that as children? Liam sat down, passing me a mug. I played with the tea bag steeping in hot water absent-mindedly while I waited for him to talk. He swirled the spoon in his cup around before his eyes came to mine. It isn't something that is talked about anymore. Our pack was once the center of a war with a powerful vampire clan. At the beginning of the war, my great-grandfather was Alpha. He rallied packs around us to fight back against the vampires that were attacking our race. But he was killed only months into the conflict. Liam paused. My grandfather took the title and continued in his stead. It was a dark time. There was a large amount of bloodshed on both sides. But what does that have to do with our pack name? I asked, not tracking where this was going. There are 12 vampire clans, all said to be sired from the original members of their race. My knowledge of their creation and lineage is murky at best. I am aware of 8 of the 12 clan names. When my great-grandfather took us to war, we were up against 3 united clans, Warwick, Bloodworth, and Gresham. Warwick was the larger of the 3 and seemed to be the main aggressor. The things I was told, he trailed off. Azalea, those creatures are monsters. They will stop at nothing to kill. Hunters may be relentless and conniving, but vampires. Coming to the end of the war, my grandfather came up with a plan to end it all. He bided his time until the lunar eclipse. During a lunar eclipse, we are stronger, faster, our senses are heightened. He planned to use that to make a final stand against the vampires. And it worked. In a single night, we almost completely eradicated all 3 clans. 2 of the 3 clans lost their sire as well. It was never confirmed if Clan Warwick's sire was killed or not. That battlefield, our pack land, was said to be bathed in blood on the night of the eclipse. That night was dubbed the Battle of the Blood Eclipse, and we soon became known as Blood Eclipse Pack. My grandfather reveled in his victory even though the cost was great on our side. He accepted the name, but it wasn't long before people wanted to stop talking about the war. The devastation was too great. My grandfather didn't find his mate until years after the war, so he was much older than normal alphas when he finally produced his heir. It's been so long that most people don't even know about the war because no one wanted to speak about it. Liam finished quietly. I could tell this was a complicated topic for him. He was far more empathetic than his father and his grandfather, I was sure. He had no issue proving his strength as alpha, but deep down, he hated conflict. Destroying White Moon had really hurt him, but I think he took some solace in how many he was able to bring back to Blood Eclipse. He looked at me, searching for understanding. Liam, I understand why you are wary of Theodore. But he said he no longer associates himself with his clan, and he in no way comes off as a threat, I said softly. I don't know that we can trust him. I will not risk your safety when I can find you a new contractor to do the renovations, he argued. No, we aren't going to do that. Instead, let's have dinner with Theodore. Maybe if you could speak to him in a more private setting, you can make a better judgment, I tried to persuade him. Liam hung his head. You aren't going to give this up. I shook my head. Fine. But after, I get to decide how we proceed. If I am not convinced that he is not a threat to my family and my pack, I will kill him. You will give him the option to leave, I pressed. He gave me a small growl. Fine. If you accept the decision I make on the matter, then I will give him one chance to leave my territory peacefully. Chapter 30. Liam Jr. Come on, Leo, you're almost there. I yelled down from the top of the tree. Since I am bigger, I had gotten up the tree much faster than baby Leo. His little arms weren't as strong as mine, but Mom wouldn't want me to tease him about that. If Missy were here, she would just carry him up the tree because everyone treats him like a baby. Baba, help! Leo called, reaching his hand up to me. Just grab that branch, I pointed for him. He gave me a whiny face, but I still didn't feel like climbing back down to help him. You can do it. My baby brother definitely needed to get stronger if he was going to grow up to help me and Dad protect Mom and the pack. If I help him all the time, he would never get stronger. Sissy would help me, he yelled. You don't need help, Leo. He grabbed onto the branch I told him to and got himself up. He was only a couple of branches below me now. See? I said with a triumphant smile. Only a couple more. Come on. With a little more cheering, Leo finally made it up to the top with me. This is the tallest tree we've ever climbed, he said, looking around us. I know. It's a new record. I couldn't wait to go home and tell Dad about it. Maybe we could have a climbing race with Delilah and Lucas too. There was a loud snapping noise below us, and I looked down. People were moving around us. I sniffed the air and smelled something rotten. I looked up at Leo, who looked at me scared. I held my finger up to my lips, telling him to be quiet. Dad told me when someone smells like garbage, that means they are bad. It means they don't have a pack, and they probably want to hurt us. Leo, those are bad people. Stay still and quiet, I linked him. Mom says I am a special child of the moon goddess. I can link anyone, even humans. I don't do it a whole lot because only grown ups can link me back. Sometimes I link the wrong person too. I scared Aunt Lemon doing it once. But, it came in handy when we played games. Delilah and I could work together, and it didn't bother her when I did it. Leo nodded at me slowly. I looked back down at the people walking around. I strained my ears, trying to hear what they were saying. I wish I were old enough to find my wolf. Then I would be able to listen to them. I could jump down from the tree and stop them. I am going to be alpha, after all. I am stronger than them, or I will be. I could see 6 grown ups all walking around. It looked like they were looking for something. I didn't want them to see us. They probably don't know that we are alpha kids, but Dad said it wouldn't matter. He said they would hurt us just because they are bad people. I looked around, away from our tree. Where were all the warriors? Weren't they following us a little while ago? Missy went to play with Maddox, and they weren't in the forest with us. I couldn't link anyone too far away for help. The warriors were supposed to watch us in case we needed help. Gavin had been grumbling for a while now. He initially wanted to just rip the vampire to pieces. Azalea, of course, made him reconsider. He acted as if she couldn't sway his opinion on things, but I knew that wasn't true. I checked my watch. 6:05 p.m. This vampire is late. You can't be objective if you are looking for a reason to dislike him, Azalea pointed out silently. He could at least be punctual, I argued. Then, as if determined to dispel my irritations, Theodore slid into the room. My apologies, Alpha, Luna. The office called just as I was headed this way. Of course, they are currently having trouble reaching young Miss Lacey, he said with a stupid grin. I didn't bother to stand and greet him, but Azalea did. Once they shook hands, they both sat down, Azalea next to me and Theodore across from me. I eyed him carefully. Are you hungry, Theodore? Azalea asked him. Her voice was light and kind. It showed no indication of the truths I revealed to her earlier. Yes, I am. I must compliment you on the lunch service at the inn, by the way. I was pleasantly surprised. You operate a fine establishment for such a small town, Theodore brown-nosed. Thank you. That is great to hear. I can't take all the credit, though. I have had a lot of help, Azalea smiled up at me. Whether she wanted to admit it or not, the only contribution I have made to her inn is the initial expansion and negotiating with Greyback to leave the inn to her. The inn's success is due to her hard work. Well, your manager would disagree with that. She told me that you have been working here nearly 10 years, starting out cooking and cleaning then slowly moving your way up. Very impressive, he complimented. Azalea blushed. The waitress entered, bringing us all glasses of water. She took our orders before leaving us again. By the tick in your jaw, I believe you would like some answers from me, Theodore said, his eyes falling on me. Intuitive, I growled. I will answer anything you have to ask of me, Alpha, he replied calmly. Which clan are you sired from? I got straight to the point. His lip quirked up in a half-smile. I am sired from Clan Warwick, he answered, holding my gaze. And yes, the conclusion you are drawing is true. Our sire was not killed during the Battle of the Blood Eclipse. Instead, he lived along with a small faction of his kindred. Before the battle, the sire of the clan Warwick put measures in place to ensure the continuation of the sire line. Azalea clutched my arm under the table, finally grasping the gravity of having a vampire in our presence. But you said you are no longer associating yourself with your clan, Azalea said. This is true. I have not prescribed the beliefs of my sire and kindred for a long time, Theodore said. Did you fight along with your kindred in the war against our race? I asked. Theodore shook his head. No, I did not. I was ostracized for my stance against my race. I was never okay with the dispute between the Lupin and vampire races. There is no reason I see that we cannot coexist among humans. If your beliefs do not align with those of your kindred, why not renounce your sire? Well, it is not as simple as you might believe. Correct me if I am wrong, when a werewolf no longer wants to associate themselves with their kindred, they leave their pack. I nodded. Essentially, I agreed. He had the basic gist. Well, it is not that simple for our race. Our existence is intrinsically linked to our sire. To break that bond is almost impossible. It often kills the vampire. If they manage to survive the break, they experience a fundamental change. It is said that the vampire will lose itself, becoming a slave to our baser instincts. Many sires choose to eliminate a kindred that goes against them. It is my understanding that renouncing a sire will also affect the sire, Theodore explained. I don't understand. What fundamental change? Azalea asked. I had an idea of what he meant. Before Theodore could answer her, the waitress came back to bring our food. Once she left, he let out a sigh. It is no secret that our race must drink blood to survive. Once we have adjusted to the changes of the transition, most vampires are able to control that craving. We actually do not need as much blood as one might think. Some members of my race do not care to control themselves, but that is a different matter. Part of our sire bond nurtures us in a way. If our sire is healthy and well-fed, we do not need as much blood to survive. Once that bond is broken, our bodies change. We need more to survive. Our minds fracture in a way. Azalea nodded her head. She was uneasy next to me. I placed my hand over her leg, trying to give her some comfort. That sounds similar to becoming a rogue, Azalea muttered. Theodore nodded his head at her. I do not tell you this to scare you, Luna. On the contrary, I only hope to answer your questions and assuage any concerns you may have about my presence here, he told her. Azalea gave him a small smile. I don't think she was afraid of him, I think she was scared of what she was learning about vampires. Why should I allow you to remain in my territory? Why shouldn't I kill you right here? I asked him. He took a bite of his food and chewed thoughtfully before responding. I haven't fed on a human since before your father was born. Azalea was shocked at his statement, and it caught me off guard as well. That is a pretty bold claim, I countered. Bold, but true. I stopped feeding on humans long ago. I admit, it was a fair adjustment period, but I can sustain myself otherwise, he said. What will you do if I do not allow you to remain here? I wondered. I would respect your wishes. After all, this is your territory, your pack. I am sure I could figure something out with my employer, he answered. Azalea was right. By all accounts so far, this vampire gave me no sign that he was at all threatening. He had been forthcoming and honest in all his answers. He had not attempted to use any of his powers on us. I couldn't be sure if he knew they would not work on someone of alpha blood or not, but I didn't want to inform him if he didn't. I stared at him, thinking. Liam? Azalea questioned. I didn't answer her right away. I believe him. I knew she did. Nothing he said tonight would change her mind, even if some of the information about vampires brought her unease. Fine, I said finally. I will allow you to remain in my territory. But there is no warning. If my men or I so much as suspect anything, you will be dealt with immediately. Do not doubt me, I warned. Theodore nodded. I wouldn't dream of it. And I swear to you, Alpha, you will have nothing to suspect me of. Azalea visibly relaxed next to me. Thank you, my Alpha. Chapter 31. Azalea. Liam and I sat on the couch in the cottage. He was still grumpy after dinner, but he had agreed to allow Theodore to remain in our territory for now, so I was taking it as a win. Liam was flicking through the TV channels. I sat with my legs over his lap and a blanket wrapped around me. Even after being mated for so long, I cannot get used to being away from him and feel much better when we go places together. He was mindlessly stroking my skin, eyes fixed on the TV with a scowl on his face while I watched him. So much had been happening lately, it was hard to take a minute and just breathe. When I convinced Liam to sit down to dinner with Theodore, I called Amy, and we decided to get together for lunch tomorrow. Lemon and I went through most of her plans for the inn and ideas for the future this afternoon. Hopefully, I would be mostly free of obligation for tomorrow to spend some time with the kids and Liam. Stop staring, little Luna. Liam's face didn't turn from the TV. I smiled at him. Are you going to stop me from looking at you, my alpha? I taunted. He ignored me and continued flipping through the channels. I snuggled back against the couch. It's getting late. When are the kids supposed to be back? He asked aloud this time. Well, I asked Missy and Maddox to come back by midnight. They went out for a run around dinner time, but Missy knows to stay in the trees. I expected the boys to come running in here any time now. It's getting dark now, I slowly realized. I went to move off the couch, but Liam gripped my legs into his lap. He was tense, and I immediately began to worry. He cursed. What? I asked instantly. He turned to me. Stay here, he ordered. Liam, where are they? I was panicking now. His hand came up and cupped my face. The patrols lost them earlier when I ordered everyone to focus their attention on the vampire and us. I am going to find them now, he tried to calm me. Liam, what if they got hurt? I let them run as they please because you always have people watching us, I began to cry. Shhh. It's okay. I am sure they are fine, and someone will be punished for this. I am going to get them. And Missy too. Just stay here. Axel is going to be outside the door, he said softly. I nodded as my lip trembled. Liam extricated himself from me and moved towards the door. When he opened the front door, Felix was standing there, breathing heavily. Liam gave him a menacing look. I'm sorry, he started, but Liam pushed past him. Felix looked at me, and I saw hurt across his face for the first time ever. Felix, my voice shook. They will be found, Luna, he said in a stern voice. He straightened up and turned to leave the cottage. I got up from the couch and moved quickly over to the kitchen counter where my phone was sitting. I grabbed it, dialing Missy quickly. Her phone rang and rang. She must still be shifted and running around with Maddox. More tears streamed down my cheeks now. If only I could link her, I could send her and Maddox to look for them too. Maybe Liam already has. For the first time in a long time, I cursed the moon goddess for leaving me like this. Liam Jr. The rogues have been there for a long time. Leo started crying and shaking at some point, but he was still quiet. We were too far from the nearest tree to jump. Plus, we would make enough noise and commotion that they would notice. It wouldn't take them long to catch us. We're too small, and Leo can't move through trees as fast as I can. I wish my dad were here. He would get rid of these rogues in no time. He is the strongest wolf in our pack. No one can hurt him, not even Uncle Damien. I slowly inched closer to Leo so I could put my arm around him. The sun was almost set now. Didn't anyone notice we were gone yet? Young man, please do not be alarmed, a strange man said. I looked around but didn't see anything. Leo was still staring down at the rogues below us. My name is Theodore. Your brother cannot hear me. I looked around more slowly this time. How can you talk to me? I thought. Ah, it seems you have some special gifts. Would you happen to be the children of the Alpha and Luna? How did he know? You're a stranger, I told him. Dad said we shouldn't just hand over information to people we don't know. That wants to help you. You seem to be stuck, the man said. What if we are up here on purpose? You are definitely the son of an alpha. While I am not sure how you got yourself in this situation, I can help you get away from those men down there. They smell awfully foul. They are rogues. Rogues smell like trash. Right you are. Do not move and keep your brother still. I am going to come to you. I looked at Leo. I didn't know who this voice belonged to. I have never heard it before. Right now, I wasn't sure I could do anything other than trust it. We had been in this tree a long time, and none of the patrols have come to find us. Dad was all the way at the pack house, and Mom wouldn't come out to the woods. She might send Felix, but Dad might get mad if he leaves her. Leo, I linked him. Someone is coming to help us. Stay still, okay? Don't be scared. I'll keep us safe. He looked up at me and nodded. I looked around us, waiting for someone to appear. When my head turned back to Leo, a man was sitting right behind him, smiling with his finger up to his lips. It's all right, little wolves. Let's get you back to your parents. I am sure your mother is worried by now. I nodded my head. Leo gave me a weird look before turning around to see the man sitting there. If you both can climb on my back, I will take you out of here, the man whispered very quietly. Leo turned to look at me. I nodded to him. The man turned, and Leo grabbed onto him first. I held on to the man and Leo, not wanting my little brother to get hurt. Hold on tight, I move very fast, he whispered one more time. Leo squeezed his eyes shut, and the man moved. I was surprised he moved so fast. I held on tighter. The trees were passing us so quickly they were just a green blur. This was faster than Dad had ever run, I was sure. After a minute, the man slowed down, and I realized we were moving towards the ground. When he stopped on the ground, he crouched down low so Leo and I could get off him. When he turned around, he smiled at us. I suspect it won't be long until someone finds you now, he said in a regular voice. Thanks, I said. What's your name? Leo asked, tilting his head curiously. My name is Theodore, the man answered. Leo held out his hand. Hi, Theodore. My name is Leo Blackfur. Thank you for saving us, Leo said, holding his hand out to shake. I rolled my eyes. Leo didn't know when we weren't supposed to be polite. Then, I heard a big growl and turned. Dad. I tried to link him. There was no response, but then a group of wolves burst through the trees into sight. I recognized Dad's giant wolf right at the front. Daddy! Leo yelled, his attention now away from Theodore. Theodore stood there relaxed, like he wasn't scared of my dad at all. Then, Dad shifted, and someone threw him shorts. When he pulled them on, Leo and I ran over to him. Theodore saved us from the bad people, Leo told Dad excitedly. Dad looked at me, confused. I think they were rogues. We were climbing the trees, and then I smelled the gross, trash smell, I told him. He turned and looked at the other wolves with him. They took off into the trees immediately. How many? My dad questioned. 6, Theodore said. The boys did the right thing and stayed put. The group couldn't find the children. Apparently, they didn't expect them to be in a tree. My dad gave Theodore a hard look. I felt sorry for Theodore, Dad was angry. Theodore moved so fast, Daddy. The bad guys didn't know at all. Leo said. I guess he decided Theodore was a good guy. Thank you for helping my children, Dad said, although his voice sounded mad. Of course, Alpha, Theodore bowed his head to Dad. I told you, I mean no one in your pack any harm. Dad nodded and turned to us. Let's take you back. Your mother is worried, he said. He turned and started walking away. Leo waved to Theodore and then ran after Dad. I hesitated for a moment. Go on. You don't want to keep your mother waiting, he said in my head again. I gave him a quizzical look but then turned around and ran after Dad and Leo. Liam, I want the rogues dealt with immediately. They were looking for my pups. I linked the patrols that had already run off. The vampire confirmed 6 of them. Alpha, were the boys found? Felix asked. Yes, I told him. Alpha, I am sorry. I should have made sure they were watched. I should not have left them unattended today, he apologized. I was still too angry to forgive him at the moment. I trusted him to make sure that my family was safe. I understand he found his second chance mate today, and he deserved it, but my pups were left in danger. Missy should be back at the cottage any second now, which will calm Azalea's terror. I can't think straight when she is like this. She's been getting increasingly more upset the longer I have been gone. I was beginning to worry about the baby again. Missy and Maddox are dressing now. They should be back in the cottage in less than 5 minutes, Felix linked again. I threw up my block and continued towards the inn with the boys following. Leo was struggling to keep up, so I bent down and scooped him up. Gavin was ready to find the rogues and rip them to shreds himself, thinking about what would have happened if they spotted the boys. Or worse, if Missy had run into them. It was everything I could do not to send the boys on their way and go kill the rogues myself. I knew if I didn't come back and calm Azalea down, she would be a mess all night. I need the kids home and safe and Azalea calm. Felix would know soon enough about the rogues. I am sure without my response he would be speaking to Axel shortly. We came to the edge of the trees, and I grabbed up my clothes from the ground. Then, I fished my phone from my pocket. Me, can you please send something back to the cottage? The boys missed dinner. Also, I would appreciate some tea to calm Azalea down. Fruit girl, no problem. Someone will be back there in about 30 minutes. Did Missy and Maddox eat? Me, I don't know. Fruit girl, I'll send extra, just in case. Lemon had come a long way from the jealous, batty-eyed teenager she was when I found Azalea at the inn. I still occasionally caught her staring, but she was far more discreet now. She worked hard and respected Azalea, so I had no complaints. Boys, let's not tell mommy about the bad guys, okay? She is already worried you ran off from the patrols, I said gently to them. Can we tell her that Theodore saved us? Leo asked. Sure. Just don't mention the bad guys, I told them. I looked down at Junior, who was scowling at me but still nodding his head. Leo wiggled down from my arms when we got to the cottage and ran with Junior to the door. When they threw the door open, I heard Azalea gasp and sob. When I got to the door, Missy stood next to her with a sympathetic look while Maddox stood to the side of the room, confused. Azalea held both boys in her arms, tightly hugging them. Missy's eyes met mine. Liam was their rogues in the woods, she linked. Did you tell her? No. Don't. She is just upset the patrols lost sight of you all for a while. Leave it at that. I sighed. Chapter 32. Missy. Lee was a mess when Maddox and I got back. I guess some wrong instructions were given, and the warriors who usually keep an eye on us while we are here were sent elsewhere. Lee wasn't expecting Maddox and me back for a while still, but Liam had urgently linked me and asked us to come back. When we walked inside, Lee was pacing back and forth, chewing on her lip. When she saw me, she started to fall with a small bit of relief on her face. I caught her, and she hugged me tightly. I had her almost calmed down when Leo and Junior burst through the door. She grabbed them up immediately as Liam came in the door behind them. When I asked Liam the question that had been burning in my mind since we started running back here, he confirmed it. When we took off back towards the inn, I picked up the slightest putrid scent on the wind, but it was gone quickly. Of course, my mind immediately went to rogues, but no one was going to tell me even if I asked. I looked over at Maddox, who was standing nervously at the side of the room. I walked over to him. "Don't worry. She worries, but it's mostly the pregnancy. Everyone is fine," I told him. "By the look on the alpha's face, someone is very lucky that his pups are all right," he said, raising an eyebrow. I looked at Liam, who was still pretty angry. He watched Azalea fuss over the boys for a moment. "Yeah. He is pretty protective. But he sort of needs to be," I commented. "Why did he leave his maid here instead of bringing her to find all of you? Seems odd she would sit here and worry about her pups instead of coming to find them," he asked. I bit my lip. It mainly was common knowledge around the pack that Azalea didn't have a wolf. Only some people actually knew all the details. Lily had only told me a couple of years ago because I wore her down about it. But Maddox wasn't a pack member yet, and I didn't know how much I was allowed to tell him. I realized he was watching me watch Lee. "If it's some big secret, you don't have to tell me. I understand. I am not part of the pack after all," he said. I looked up at him, but he didn't look upset at all. "You two should go clean up. Lemon is sending back some dinner for all of you shortly," Liam linked me. I caught his eyes on us and nodded. "Let's go clean up." "I'll explain later," I told him. He nodded, and we both headed to the back. I showered first and then told Liam we would pass on dinner. It seemed like one of those nights where they needed some alone time. Then, there was a knock on the door, and I turned to see Maddox standing there, drying his hair with a towel, shirtless again. He smelled really good fresh from the shower. "Hey," he said, smiling. "Hey," I choked out. "Today was fun," he said, coming all the way into my room. I was sitting on the bed against the headboard, waiting for V to text me back. Maddox sat down on the bed. "Yeah, it was. Although, I don't think hunting is my thing. I think I will stick to normal food," I laughed. He laughed back at me. "You were sort of terrible," he teased. I gave him a mock scowl. He put his hands up in surrender. "I will admit, though, you move very gracefully for a wolf. Since I spent most of our run chasing you, I would know." "Thanks," I said. Even though I won't be alpha, I did make Liam train me for a while there. Some things must have stuck. "I hope he lets me train to become a warrior," Maddox sighed, looking down at his hands. "Why do you want to become a warrior so bad?" I asked. He had mentioned it before, but I never pressed the issue. I tried to avoid talking about his old pack, too, ever since that first day I met all of them. Maddox was quiet for a minute. "You don't have to tell me. I get not wanting to talk about things. Like your parents?" he asked softly, looking up at me. I just nodded my head. I didn't particularly appreciate talking about my parents. Maddox sighed. "I guess it's only fair. I figured the Alpha and Luna would have told you before they forced you to entertain us that first day." "Tell me what?" "All Lee said was that you guys would be joining the pack soon. I sort of wondered how you all just sort of appeared, but you guys didn't seem to want to talk about it, so I left it alone." "I didn't think it was really my business," I said. "Sol, Sulian, Alex, and I are all from the same pack. We're rogues, Missy," he admitted. I knitted my eyebrows. But how could that be? That doesn't make sense. Rogues are bad. They want to hurt people. Being out of a pack makes them sick, I rambled. We belonged to a tiny pack a long way from here. So small that when we first got to this town, we thought this was the whole pack. One day, we were attacked. Someone came in, beheaded our alpha, then murdered our Luna in front of everyone. We couldn't do anything to stop it. Then he started killing people and burning our pack to the ground. Everyone ran to try and get away. My mom has been gone for a few years now, but my dad and older sister were with me. Neither of them made it. He squeezed his eyes shut, and my breath caught in my throat. My dad was trying to help people get out, my sister and I included. When that thing came after us, he tried to stop it and give us time to escape. We managed to get away at first, but it found us. My sister and I ran, but when it was getting too close, she shoved me into the river and sacrificed herself. Maddox was clenching his fists in his lap, and it looked like he was fighting back tears. I inched forward a little. Maddox, I whispered. After I managed to get out of the river, I didn't see anyone for a couple of days. Eventually, I found the rest of them. We started looking for a new pack because we weren't sure what else to do. We got rejected a lot. One pack chased us off, and one of their warriors almost hurt one of the kids with us. I stepped in between them and got hurt. My arm wasn't healing right after that, too, Maddox said. His voice was tight as he looked up at me. When we got here, they took us all to a room. They wanted a representative to speak with the Alpha and Luna. I thought we were done for. Then your mom came in the room asking for the person who was hurt, and everyone offered me up. I couldn't believe it when she healed my arm. I've never seen anything like it. The Alpha and Luna were so kind to us. They gave us a chance when so many packs hadn't because peaceful rogues aren't a thing. You want to become a warrior because you couldn't help your family or your pack. I concluded. He nodded, holding my gaze. If my mate is out there, I want to be able to protect her. I never want to feel weak and helpless again, he said. I could feel the pain in his voice. I scooted closer to him. I don't think you're weak, Maddox, I said softly. Can I tell you something? He asked. We were sitting very close now. I nodded my head. I was a little disappointed when you told us you wouldn't be alpha. I know girls aren't really made alpha, but I had thought maybe one day I would like to be protecting you. Really? Why? I asked, confused now. He couldn't answer my question because Leo came into the room yelling. Sissy! Can we have stories? He ran right up to the bed, stopping and looking between Maddox and me with a smile. This poor thing was so oblivious. Leo, you are supposed to knock before you run into someone's room. Junior scolded from the doorway. Oh, right, Leo said. He made a fist and bumped it on Maddox's leg. Knock, knock, he said. Now, can we have stories? Daddy said he was going to put Mommy to bed because her eyes are all leaky. Maddox laughed at his innocence. I cracked a smile too. I looked over at Maddox, and he gave me a warm smile and shrug. I guess our conversation could continue another time. Lacey. My mate is odd. I never in my dreams thought I would find a second chance after Harry passed. It took me so long to pull myself back together, and I never considered being with anyone else. My Harry was amazing, sweet, kind. He was nothing like Felix. Where Felix is enormous, quiet, and brooding, Harry was small, talkative, and easygoing. The moon goddess sure threw me a curveball. After the meeting was over, I finished up with Jax and left the dining room to find Felix standing near the steps leading to the guest rooms. His eyes were immediately on me, and I felt butterflies in my stomach. It was a feeling I had missed for sure. I asked him to wait while I put my things away. I ran up to my room, put my work away, and quickly freshened up before going downstairs to find him. When I got downstairs, he said nothing. Instead, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me along behind him to another room. The telltale sparks erupted where his hand made contact with my arm. It was my understanding that there were no guest rooms on the ground floor of the main building, so I assumed the room was specially reserved for him or other pack members. When we got inside, he let go of me but then just stood there staring at me, saying nothing. After a few minutes of awkward staring, I started looking around the room. There wasn't a whole lot in the room, it looked like any average travel accommodation. The only personal items were a small travel bag sitting on the desk with clothes folded neatly inside. He said nothing as I walked around the room, looking around for anything that gave me an idea about who he was. Eventually, I sat on the end of the bed and just stared back at him. He just continued to stand there and watch me. All I could gather from this is that he is a man of very, very few words. It had been at least an hour since he dragged me in the room when he finally said something. "Dinner. Let's go," was all I got. Having nothing better to do for the moment, I went with him. The mate bond was pulling me towards him anyway. I wasn't going to give in until I got to know him, though. The moon goddess may think this weird giant was exactly what I needed, but I wasn't sold yet. Instead of eating at the inn, Felix left the building and led us through town to a small diner. He strode right in and sat at a table away from others. A waitress came over and was surprised to see me. She seemed to know exactly what Felix wanted and brought me a menu so I could decide. After I ordered and our food was brought out, we ate in silence. I would look up at him occasionally, and he would be staring right at me. It was the most awkward meal I ever ate with someone. After we finished, we walked back to the inn, and Felix headed straight to his room once more. When I moved to go to my room, he stopped and gave me a weird look. He looked legitimately puzzled. Was not talking for hours on end while in the presence of someone else genuinely normal for him? I was curious if I would be able to get him to say anything, so I followed him. When we got inside his room, it was much the same as before dinner. I started trying to ask him questions. I quickly realized I could ask him a yes or no question, and he would shake or nod his head. When I asked him something that required words, he was just quiet. All I was able to find out is that he works for the Alpha and Luna, who I had already met, and that I am his second chance as well. When I asked if he wanted to know more about me, he paused before tentatively nodding. I told him that I would tell him anything he wanted to know if he asked me. Then I sat on the bed once more and waited. We just looked at each other while I waited for him to speak. Being in such close proximity to him for a while now was getting difficult. He smelled delightful, and it was making my body want him. I was getting ready to call it quits when he finally broke the silence. "Am I your second chance?" he asked. I smiled, feeling victorious. Nodding, I said, "Yes. My mate passed away 4 years ago." "How?" "He was human. He got sick," I told him. It didn't hurt as much to talk about anymore, but I didn't want to get into details. "Pack. Very, very few words. Do I belong to one?" I clarified. He nodded. "Yes, I do. Although, I live in a predominantly human city." He cd'd his head to the side only a fraction. I smiled the tiniest bit. That minimal gesture made him look almost cute in his weird broody, angry demeanor. "Oh, goddess, what is wrong with me?" He went to open his mouth once more and stopped abruptly. His eyebrows screwed up in confusion, and for the briefest moment, a look of panic crossed his features. I sat up straighter. "What's wrong?" I tried to ask. He said. He didn't spare me another glance as he turned and threw his door open, almost running out. Seriously, what was that? Chapter 33. Azalea. After they ate, Liam sent the boys to find Missy and Maddox so he could make me stop leaking, as Leo put it. I thank the moon goddess every day that Liam isn't as harsh as his father, and they get to enjoy their childhoods as children as long as we can allow them to. It's a miracle that Liam is as sweet and compassionate as he is. We sat on the couch, and he held me close to him. "Thank you for finding them," I said. Liam kissed the top of my head. "I'm sorry you were left to worry, little Luna. They should have never taken eyes off them," he said. I knew someone would be getting in trouble for this, and I guessed it might be Felix by the way he appeared earlier. Liam had asked him to arrange the patrols before he dismissed him to go spend time with Lacey. I hoped that pushing it off until morning would give Liam some time to calm down, at least. Liam, who was Leo talking about? The fast man? I asked him. His arms tensed around me a bit, and I was confused. "I don't want you to freak out, okay? I'm already worried about the baby," he said softly. "Liam, what happened?" I asked, getting a little worried now. His hands started rubbing my back gently. "They boys were climbing trees when they spotted a small group of rogues. They did the right thing and stayed put. They must have thought the patrols would help them," he said in a gentle voice. I tried to pull away from him and sit up properly, but he held me still. "Rogues almost found my children? Liam." I began to panic again. When Liam ran off, I imagined them hurt. I didn't imagine rogues finding them. "Yes, little Luna. Junior said he smelled the trash smell. But they stayed put, and no one saw them at the top of the tree," he tried to assuage me. "Did you get the rogues?" I asked. "The patrol found them and took care of the matter," he said. "Wait, you didn't find them?" "Liam, who brought the boys back." Liam wouldn't let me move away from him. He held me to him as I waited for his answer. "Liam. The vampire got them away from the rogues," he finally said. I stopped moving. "Theodore?" I clarified. He nodded. "He rescued my boys from the rogues." "Yes, he got them away. According to Leo, they didn't even know he was there," he explained. A smile broke out across my face. I didn't need to say anything more about it. Theodore had done more with his selfless gesture than he had during all the conversation at dinner. Liam wasn't going to admit readily that he had been quick to judge Theodore, but that was all right. I snuggled closer to him, finally starting to relax after everything that has happened today. Tomorrow morning, I would thank Theodore personally for his help. Gentle, pleasurable sparks flowed along my arm, starting at my wrist and slowly moving up to my shoulder. Then back down again. I'm so warm, and the smell of the forest surrounds me. I smile as my mind slowly wakes up. My face is cuddled close into Liam's chest as we lay on our sides facing each other. He must already be awake with his fingers trailing up and down my arm gently. "Little Luna, are you going to sleep all day?" his voice said gently in my head. I hummed. I was comfortable and enjoying it. I didn't want to move yet. "I like my warm, Liam-filled bubble." He chuckled softly. I thought you were going to see Amy for lunch? If you sleep much longer, she is going to come to drag you out of here, he tried again. Wait, what time is it? I tried to roll away from Liam a fraction, but my whole body felt heavy still. Liam's face came down close to mine. His nose glided along my cheek. Come on, baby. You have slept all morning, he told me. He sounded a little worried. I managed to open my eyes and turn toward his face. He smiled down at me, then peppered soft kisses on my lips. Are you okay, baby? You still look so tired, he asked. Yeah, I'm okay, I whispered. I did still feel exhausted and wasn't too keen to leave the bed in him. What time is it? A little past noon, he said. You were so asleep, even Leo and Junior arguing didn't wake you this morning. Oh no, the kids. I started to move at that, but Liam wrapped his arm around me. It's okay. Missy went shopping this morning with Lemon and will be back to go to Amy's. The boys are with Maddox and Felix. I relaxed again at his words. Liam moved, pulling us both into a sitting position. When I leaned my weight against him, he looked down at me, worried again. Maybe I should take you home and to the doctor, he worried. No, I said, trying to make my body cooperate. I'm just a bit tired still. Yesterday took more out of me than I thought. How's my pup? He asked, his hand coming to my stomach. Perfectly fine, I told him. Liam reached his hand up under my shirt and started to caress my stomach gently. I sighed in content. My brain finally caught up to something Liam already told me. Wait, why is Felix with the boys? Shouldn't he be spending time with his new mate? I asked Liam. He gave me a guilty look. He may be feeling guilty and responsible for the situation yesterday. I was bewildered, and Liam quickly explained. I blamed him. I left him responsible for coordinating the patrols before he went to be with his mate, and when the boys went missing, I made my frustration clear. Liam, how could you? I scolded. That man has been the perfect bodyguard for years now. He never takes a day off. He went on our honeymoon. The patrols should have been wiser to realize not to leave the children unattended. You cannot blame Felix for this. Azalea, if those rogues had spotted them, no. I said adamantly. I am painfully aware of what could have happened if the rogues found them. But you aren't going to blame him. Get someone else to watch them and tell Felix to go back to his mate. All I could think about was the hurt look on his face when Liam stormed out to find the kids last night. Felix never looked hurt or scared. Azalea, whether you agree or not, he failed us yesterday. I didn't command him to watch over the boys. He was at the door when Missy and Maddox were leaving to take them up to breakfast. He is punishing himself right now, and I do not disagree with it. I will speak with him later about the matter, but that does not mean that he did not endanger my pups, he said in a stern voice. I let out a forceful sigh. Fine. When we leave to go to Amy's, he is being relieved for the day. And I am inviting Lacey back to the pack house with us. She should get a chance to know her mate. You may want to also start looking for someone else. He won't be available at all hours of the day and night any longer. Liam nodded, clearly still frustrated but not wanting to argue any further. Let's get ready for the day. When Amy called earlier, she asked if you could be over at 2. All right, I said. Help me out of bed? I asked, hoping to soften his mood. It worked because he gave me a small smile and nodded. I reached up and kissed his cheek as he pulled me up into his arms. I didn't enjoy arguing with Liam, but someone needed to tell him when he was out of line. Missy. I sipped the iced coffee we stopped and got between stores. We were headed to one more store that Lemon wanted to check out before going back to the inn. We were all supposed to go to Amy's for lunch today, so this was only a short shopping trip. Lemon helped me pick out a couple of new summer dresses and a charming pair of overall shorts. We found her some new summer blouses for work, and I picked out a necklace and earring set for her. "So, are you going to tell me about these boys?" she asked as we walked. I choked a little on my drinks. "Boys?" I sputtered. She laughed. "Yeah. More specifically, how does Maddox fit in with Vlad?" "He's just a friend," I said quickly. "A friend who hangs on your every word and looks at you with goo-goo eyes," she teased. "No, he doesn't. A friend who you are always laughing with and smiling at." "It isn't like that. You've never brought Vlad out to the inn," she pointed out. "I guess I never had." I shrugged. "You are allowed to change your feelings, miss." "What do you mean? How do I explain this?" She paused, thinking. "When you are young, you think you know everything. You probably feel like you are so ready to be a grown-up and move away from Liam and Lee. You probably hate how overbearing they can be. It's natural. Most of us do it. I was the same way. I rebelled as hard as I could in this tiny, little town. Lee and Amy were around to keep me straight and make sure I didn't mess up too bad, but I still tried. When you are young and think that way, you can get pretty caught up in one guy and ignore everything else. You can ignore when someone or something better comes along and hold on tight to those feelings, even if they start to change. All I am saying is, it's okay to change your mind. Vlad may seem like the one, but it's totally possible that he isn't. I'm not changing my mind." "Really?" "Because the last time I took you out, all you did was talk about Vlad. You haven't mentioned him once since you got here," she said. "Lemon will always call me on my ST. I usually appreciate it, but right now, it was just adding to the frustration of being conflicted." "It's Vlad. Maddox is just a friend," I said, trying to end the conversation. "All right. If you say so, but I am going to give you my 2 cents, as far as guys go, that Maddox is a keeper. Not only are you relaxed and happy around him, but he also seems like a genuinely good guy. He happily offered to play with your siblings today while we went out. He even carried Leo into breakfast on his shoulders. Plus, Lee seems to adore him, and Liam doesn't want to rip his head from his shoulders. Those are all good signs, my dear." With that, we went into the last store. Lemon shopped around while I just followed her, thinking about what she told me. "Lacey." When I walked into the dining room for breakfast this morning, I immediately saw Felix sitting at a table with some children. His face tilted up, and we locked eyes for a moment before he looked down at his plate again. The girl at his table, who looked to be around 16 years old, looked over at me with a confused expression, her eyes toggling between us. I moved to sit with Jax and Theo. I would only be in town a couple of days to help get things rolling before I returned to the office. Felix never came back to his room last night. After sitting there for over an hour, I went back to my room. I found it difficult to sleep last night, though. I felt restless the entire time. I didn't know if it was because of the mate bond or how he had left, but something wasn't sitting right in my chest. I picked at my breakfast, earning a worried look from Theo. Being a vampire, he already knew that Felix and I were mates, so I am sure we were confusing him. Jax rambled on and on about things that needed to be done as we began the remodel, but I barely listened. Lemon came out and talked to the girl at the table with Felix. She jumped up and bounded out with her. I guessed that these were the alpha children because they all seemed very comfortable around Lemon, and Felix was by their side. The three boys and Felix soon got up and left together. I looked up hopefully as he left, but he kept his eyes forwards towards the kids with him as they left the room. I shook my head, trying to push him from my thoughts. I would focus on work and get out of here as quickly as I could. If he wasn't interested in being my second chance, I wasn't interested in being his. The rest of the audiobooks will be uploaded in the next episode. Join us on Patreon to listen to more unlimited audiobooks.